Most people think managing money means cutting back. No holidays, no fun, no enjoyment. But let me pose you just one question. Why only live for a future when that future is what's not guaranteed? I believe the goal isn't just to save money for tomorrow. My main goal is to build a system where I can live well today whilst my money quietly works in the background for a better future. That's exactly what I'm going to show you today. I'm Christian Maloof and welcome back to Capital Clarity. I'm filming parts of this video across Thailand and Bali, and to some people that sounds irresponsible. But here's the difference. These trips weren't impulse decisions. They were funded deliberately through a system, and that system ensures my savings and investments keep growing, even whilst I'm away. I don't believe in delaying life forever, but I also don't believe in hoping things will just work out. The balance is quite simple. Enjoy today within a structure that protects you tomorrow. That is what this system is designed to do. The new year, the new budget reset, the foundation. Every year, I run a full budget reset, not to restrict myself, but to create clarity, because clarity gives you confidence. Now, instead of just talking about this in theory, I'm actually going to show you my bucket system. I'm about to walk you through my real spreadsheet and how I break income into percentages and then how this turns into buckets. This part isn't about copying my numbers. It's about understanding the structure. Let me take you through it. So I've been speaking about my budgeting process for every new year. And what you can see here is my spreadsheet template that I use. Obviously something that I want to create to become a little bit more sophisticated in the future. But for now, this is what I use. And basically to give you an idea, most people will be rather reactive with their budget. They'll wait till they're seeing a mortgage broker to do a loan, or they're in a position where they're in financial uncertainty or difficulty, and they'll start to worry about their budget, and they'll put something together similar to what you see here. I've highlighted income for myself and my wife. Just a note there that this isn't our real income. For purposes of not sharing my personal financial information with everybody on YouTube, I've decided to put in some fake numbers. It's more to give you a view of the process that I go through. So we've got some real expenses in here of mine and my wife's, but the numbers have been altered. It is the same template that we use, and this will really help you with the process itself. So when I'm having a look at the spreadsheet here, we've obviously got income here, and then underneath the income, we've got our itemized expenses. The idea behind that and where this budget started was literally just sitting down and jumping into my bank statements and credit card statements for the year and trying to work out what it is that I spend my money on. Ultimately, we arrived at a post-spend picture. From that, I wanted to sit down and work out what it actually is that I want to spend moving forward. And so ultimately, we've got that position here. If I go through some of the expenses, you've got Aussie Broadband, obviously being our internet, things like our mobile phone bills and tablets in the household, home insurance, bus parking and travel, Medibank private health insurance, insurance for cars, and actually whilst I'm in here, that's actually insurance both cars. Then you go down to proactive investment and savings amounts that we want to put forth, TV and memberships, petrol, so forth. I'm not going to run through every expense, but ultimately you understand that we've got expenses and then we put those expenses into categories. We've got an annual cost and a monthly cost in this template. As a starting point, my recommendation would be that you either use this template or others. If you reach out to me on YouTube, I'm happy to help you with the template. Basically, you put in your expenses and categories, and then you can work out both an annual cost and a monthly cost. And really, monthly or annual costs aren't difficult, depending on which one you're working from. So for instance, if you're running with your health insurance, you know what you charge every month. You can see that on your statement. So I'm charged $488 every month, obviously in this example. And all I've done is I've just times 488 by 12, and that gives me 5856. And look, that's a really easy exercise. So just grab the expense here. You can go equals this tab times 12, and in Excel, it works itself out really quickly. You can use Excel with formulas. So really, really nice feature there to be able to use when you're working through your budget. But ultimately, this is the budget. A lot of people fall short because they might create a budget, but that budget means nothing when they continue with their lives. And so we're into a new year now, and expenses have started and spend has started. A budget on a piece of paper doesn't mean a whole lot unless you're proactively living that budget. What I use for that is a category summary page. So if I scroll into the next page here, this is where the magic happens. As you can see, hopefully this is big enough for you. Those categories I've brought in to this little section here from the budget. And what I've done is put in the actual total amount of each category, and that's created a percentage. Okay. And so if I go back into the budget here, let's say I wanted to look at household bills and insurance, I can click here into household bills and insurance, and I can see here that these are all the expenses within that category. And if I highlight all the annual costs and I scroll down to the bottom tab, I can see that the total amount there is 44,639. And so when I jump into here, we've got 44,639. And basically what that does is produces a percentage for me, and that percentage then runs back up into this area here. And this is once I put my fortnightly pay in, or monthly pay, depending on how you want to do it, it allocates that expense here and tells me how much needs to be directed every fortnight, month, or year into that particular household bills and insurance bucket. You start with the budget here. You fill it in based on your personal expenses. You put in an annual cost, a monthly cost, and obviously add the category that's relevant. And then when you get into the category area, you filter on your itemized budget by category. You put in the totals in here. That creates you a percentage over here. And then over here, you can start to, once you put in your fortnightly salary, and that fortnightly salary came in from this little area just here. So once again, a quick way of doing it is just to go fortnightly salary equals, and then jump into here and click it. And once you press enter, what it does is actually brings in your fortnightly salary. And so if I'm jumping back into here, as your salary changes, whether it's throughout the course of the year or just on an annual basis, you can literally just jump into this spreadsheet. The edit then grabs these figures across and changes what your fortnightly income is. If you're running off fortnightly, obviously can tailor this spreadsheet to monthly too. If monthly is when you're being paid, depends on how often you're being paid, weekly, monthly, fortnightly. Those alterations can be made in this spreadsheet. The important thing is when this figure here changes, it creates the new figure, and then it runs off this figure to run off your percentages. So this area here is where you work out your percentages on an annual basis, which is what I do every year. And then this allows me to know exactly how much I need to transfer every week, fortnight, month, depending on how often I'm paid. For my example, myself and my wife are paid fortnightly. We can then work out that this is the amount we need to allocate into each bucket. We literally have 9 bank accounts that we run off. As you can see, there's 9 fields here. That enables us to
run those fields as accounts. When I talk about buckets, they're basically just bank account buckets or categories. We open 9 accounts. Most lenders and banks now offer you multiple offset accounts, which allow you to hold deposits in multiple bank accounts. You're able to then offset your mortgage or interest that's payable on your mortgage. Myself and my wife have 9 different bank accounts, and they're all labeled groceries and essentials, holiday and travel, household bills and insurance, and so forth. We're able to use this tool every year, and I look at this tool monthly because costs change monthly. I'll give you an example. I was speaking with Aussie Broadband yesterday. They have now got fibre to the premises available in my area, and I've obviously elected for that to happen because I love my tech, and that's an extra $30 a month for my internet. So literally it's just an option of me updating my monthly charge from $114 to $130, and then the percentages will amend accordingly. I literally just change this figure here. This creates a new percentile, which links to this area up here, and it gives me a new guideline of what amount I need to allocate per fortnight into that particular bucket to pay that particular bill. So ultimately the idea behind it is that over the course of the year, you should have these amounts sitting in these buckets ready for you to spend as your build. So I'll give you an example. The holiday that we just took in Thailand and Bali, you've got holidays and travel here. So we've got an annual allocation of $31,377. I was able to pay for everything, both flights, accommodation, and everything else through that account allocation. The idea being that if there isn't enough money within that account, we don't spend that money. And so it really empowers you at the beginning of every year to go, all right, what do we get paid per fortnight? What are we going to allocate into each bucket? What should that bucket look like at the end of the year? And remember, if you're running with this system ongoing, the first year it'll be a little bit difficult because you might be billed for your holiday before the money actually is in totality in that account. My advice to you is don't do that. Actually spend a year accumulating some of these balances, and then you go into the following year with an accurate amount of money sitting in that account. Or you might have some money saved anyway for that holiday. The advice would be not to touch the bucket on this occasion or that particular account on this occasion until you've given this a year to start building that money up. Things like my mortgage, obviously we've got a main offset account for that. So every fortnight, $2,633.07 goes into our mortgage account, and that obviously gets slurped up pretty quickly when those amounts are charged via direct debit out of that account. So with this system, you've got to be quite smart with it. You've got to make sure that the different accounts are direct debited for where those expenses lie. Myself and my wife use our credit cards pretty much to cover everything. The idea behind that is that we don't need to pay the credit card until the end of the month, and we get zero interest if we pay the credit card off in full. And that obviously keeps the most amount sitting in offset every month, and banks accumulate interest daily and charge monthly. So having more money sitting in credit card debt than sitting in off our offset account is actually favorable for us. I'll go into that in more depth in future videos, but ultimately the idea behind it is we accumulate money into these bucket bank accounts. We have all those accounts as offset accounts, and we use our cards to spend. The idea behind it is when we get the card bill, we pull a certain percentage from each bucket, and that goes in to pay the credit cards. There's a little bit of admin in this. What I'm actually doing is automating those as periodical repayments in my internet banking. The idea is the day after I'm paid and my wife is paid, that money gets allocated straight away into those buckets and sits there. And in the itemized budget here, we've got a small surplus even after all these expenses, including proactive savings. The beauty of that is we have a main bank account. So we've got our bucket accounts and then a main offset account. The money just sits in that main offset account, and that just allows us a little bit of wriggle room. Automatically, those category buckets and accounts associated are credited by that main account that me and my wife both get paid into. So I'm hoping that makes a little bit of sense. I'll obviously explain it a little bit further in the rest of the video, and I can dig deeper into this if you want that. Please like and subscribe to the channel because future content will roll in with this. But also, if there's anything there, please put it in the comments section around where you'd like further clarity, where you'd like further examples. It's not a complex system. It's literally just getting your budget and expenses down on paper, working out what you actually want to spend. And what you'll note here, guys, is there is savings and investments. So this is an area here for proactive investment and savings. So allocate $14,400 per annum goes into that, which is $1,200 a month, which roughly works out at about $600 a fortnight. That gets allocated into that investing and wealth building offset account. What should be the goal for many of you, and what is definitely my goal, is starting to get really proactive around where your money's going. start trying to plan the year at the beginning of the year. Now, we all know that things happen in the year, emergencies happen. Example, my hot water system went down last year. Aircon can go down, kids can end up in emergency wards with issues. Whatever it may be, things do pop up, and feel free if you want to have an emergency account to go and create that as a bucket. You don't know what emergencies are going to cost you until they come, and you got to work with them as they come. But trying to be as proactive as possible is really, really key to move forward. And for example, when we've had issues in the past where we've needed more than what sits in our buffer, I always encourage having a bit of a surplus. As you can see here, once we've allocated all our money, there is still a little bit of a surplus, which is wonderful. If you've got a surplus account, that can really help with emergencies. You won't see that here in my budget, but you can absolutely add it and have it there, because the important thing is really trying to be coordinated in your approach and have a purposeful way of getting somewhere. I think if you just put the sail up and try to go where the wind takes you, you end up going around in circles. Ultimately, you have to have a plan. You have to have structure as to where you want to go. I find that this budget, setting up percentages in terms of your expenses and creating buckets, really helps you get on top of your finance. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a little bit of work to set up. Once you automate it with periodical payments, it can be really effective. That's how I do it. And you just review it, whether it's quarterly, half yearly or yearly. You make changes based on what you need, whether you're earning more money and you want to allocate more into different buckets, whether it's that an emergency expense has come up and you need to add that in for the year, whatever it may be, you can alter this and change your periodical payments. Or if you're making transfers manually every fortnight, you can do that too. The power in this is allocating percentages and being really proactive with what it is you're going to spend throughout the course of the year.
So once the structure is set and the hard decisions are already made, that's where the bucket system really earns its keep. This isn't just a spreadsheet exercise. Once the percentages are set, the system moves into real life. Each percentage is proactively distributed into separate bank accounts, what I call my buckets. And this is where most people get it wrong. This is not about paying bills, spending money, and then hoping there's enough in the background. This is about deciding in advance where every dollar is going before life has a chance to spend it for you. Every dollar already has a job. This is where most stress disappears. When income hits your account, it's been allocated. If there's money in the bucket, you can spend it. If there isn't, you don't. No guilt, no guessing, no mental maths. Now onto the crucial bucket, savings and investments. There's one bucket that's absolutely non-negotiable, and that's the savings and investment bucket. This bucket is the one that will change everything, because saving alone doesn't create freedom. What creates freedom is making your money work for you. The bucket doesn't get leftovers, it gets priority. It's funded first, it's automated, and everything else fits in and around it. A wealth mindset. A cousin once said something that struck me. You know you've truly made it when you're making money whilst you sleep. If you think about it, that's the shift. The other quote that I rather like is the one that says, poor people buy things they throw out, middle people buy debt, and wealthy people buy assets to make them more money. The difference isn't always income. It's what you do with your money after you earn it. In this system, the savings and investment bucket comes before the lifestyle upgrades. They're consistent, they're protected, and they compound quietly in the background, even while you're living your life. In future videos, I'll break down exactly how I trade and invest to make my money work for me, what I invest in and how I think about risk, and how I separate income, savings, and capital growth. But none of this matters before you build a system like this one first.